Maxey. Wow, what a play. He's got Bogdanovich thinking about a three. There it is. Yes! From beyond. Oh, and there's Bud coming up with a steal. Curry open. It's for three. Yes!
And now, Morning Cup of Joe. Good morning, everybody. What is going on, Sixers fan? Welcome to the premiere episode of Morning Cup of Joe, a show where me and Tiago just talk shop, react to the previous games during the previous night, talk about the top news. Joining me, follow my man on Twitter. If you aren't already, you're doing it wrong. He is at tscabbia on Twitter. Good morning, Tiago.
Morning, Chris. It's very nice to talk Sixers to you about as early as you possibly can. So, excited to be here. Team looked really good last night. Very exciting, even with some key players out. Obviously, the main player being out potentially for good. So it's good to see how fun and good they looked on the court. I'm sure we'll talk about different things. But, yeah, it was a great game last night against Brooklyn.
Absolutely. Guys, before we deep dive into Sixers versus Nets, if you're watching us live, comment during the show, interact with us. We'll put your questions on the show. That is the main point of this entire program. So Morning Cup of Joe, we'll do some live segments. We'll do some previously recorded segments with some guest interviews. So let's lead off. My top takeaway of last night has to be Isaiah Joe. The dude is shooting 12 of 19 from three. He leads the team in minutes played this year. He leads the team in total points scored. He's got 7 steals. He's got 2 blocks. What doesn't this guy do? The biggest thing that I took away from last night, though, was the ability to handle the ball in a pick and roll, finish in that mid-range area. That's something we've seen the last 2 games. And that's something that has really stood out. I've always expected him to be just a natural born shooter from three, fearless, high attempts. But for me, I have been pleasantly surprised by his ability to get and penetrate into the lane and finish. He had a nice runner there last night in that first half. Tiago, what is one of your takeaways?
Yeah, I think you really touched on it, Chris, because I think the ball handling aspect of his game. And again, it's in the pick and roll. He's not doing anything crazy off the dribble, taking guys off one-on-one, anything like that. But his ability to really master the pick and roll, at least what he showed yesterday. So change of dribble, change of pace, hesitation. He's got that sweet kind of subtle pass that he throws, no look, bounce pass, hit Drummond on a couple of lobs. Those things for what Doc Rivers wants to accomplish on offense is really intriguing, especially when we talk about, his main point guard, pick and roll point guard right now, which is Shake Milton, right? And granted, Shake Milton is going to be a part of his team without Ben Simmons. Doc loves him, and Shake does a lot of interesting things on the court. But when you stack both of them side by side, to me, Isaiah Joe is the more interesting option because of the shooting. So you're able to get the same type of pick and roll ball handling with the shooting range, which is absolutely insane. I think I tweeted a stat before the last game that last year Isaiah Joe averaged 23.3 feet per shot, which is the 3rd longest range among all NBA players with 300 some minutes played. That's like Davis Bertans' range. So having a guy who can shoot from that far, handle the ball, and also play defense. I mean, you saw him. I mean, James Harden is James Harden. James Harden got on quite a few possessions, but he was not fazed by the moment, and he was not completely outmatched by the moment. So all those things have been really excited about his game. I mean, to me, he's a bona fide fixture in the rotation, and that guy's gonna be a big piece heading into the year.
Here are his highlights from last night. I love seeing the chemistry being built with him and Joel this early this season already. You can find this highlight reel at the Paint Alliance YouTube channel. I put these up every single morning, but you see every shot, every assist. So, yeah, I mean, what is there more to say about there. Like, I love that feel of the game that Isaiah Joe has. Like, this guy's not just a catch and shoot guy from the perimeter, which I kind of expected a little bit coming out of college. This guy has definitely developed. This guy has definitely, progressed over the last year or so. There's the runner I was talking about. Love to see that, man. If that's an element of his game, not unlike Tyrese Maxey, man. If Tyrese Maxey's forces defenders to fight, over the screen, like, it's a game changer. And if Isaiah Joe with that range can put the ball in the court and put pressure on a defense like that inside the 3-point line, it's really fun to think about. Just where this kid here's another highlight of last night, the steal and then the three. That is Isaiah Joe. Any other takeaways from either Isaiah Joe or the Nets game?
Well, just more important Isaiah Joe, because you remember, you and I did a lot of scouting on Isaiah Joe. He's one of the players we probably scouted the most out of all the players we've ever scouted in college, because we liked his game so much, and he fits exactly what the Sixers needed. So one of the things that we also saw from Isaiah Joe was, his ability to hit shots on the ball, and that's something we're yet to see. He's mostly does it off the catch. But I still think there's an element to his game in terms of the ability to hit the shots off the drive. He had a little stat back in Arkansas that he showed really well. So I think there's another gear to his game that we may see as he gets more comfortable in a future role with the Sixers, which we'll definitely have going into the year. My last takeaway is obviously Joel Embiid. In his very limited I don't even know how many minutes he played. He had 14 points, very limited run, first quarter mostly. I mean, you saw what spacing around Joel Embiid does, and we've always created this narrative around, surround Ben Simmons with shooters, which is a rightful narrative. I mean, Ben has tremendous potential for 5-out setup, but man, I mean, you see it with Joel, man. Like, you saw double teams be halfway in between if they wanted to double team or if they want to stick to the shooter. And with Joel's ability to take guys off the dribble, that is a bad position to be in, because he took Blake a couple times off the dribble. He took Paul Millsap off the dribble. There was no extra help there to kind of stop that. And, even when help got there, I mean, his ability to hit shots and post guys up, he has a little sweet fadeaway. I mean, he looked about as dominant as he's ever looked. I mean, granted, it's a preseason game, but it was one of those things that you could tell there was nothing Brooklyn could throw at him. And a big reason why is how the Sixers have set up offense around them with the lineup they had out there, which I think it's a lineup they should explore during the season. I mean, you see the space he's got to work with. It's quite refreshing to see.
There, I was muted. My bad. This is one of my low-key favorite plays of last night, where Joe Harris comes with the double team. He splits it, finds an open. Furkan Korkmaz there. I think that was no look there off the double team. Just absolutely terrific, man. That is, we've been waiting for that game of Joel Embiid to really take that next level. He had 3 assists last night. Just making Blake Griffin look silly right there. Just terrific. Yeah, is this the MVP season for Joel Embiid, man?
I mean, it's got to be. I mean, I think he's gonna play a lot more games than he usually does, assuming that he's healthy. So that play minutes, play games excuse that voters use not to put him in the MVP discussion, I think it's gonna go away.
Mm-hmm.
And granted, I mean, the competition is fierce, man. I think you're going to get another great year from Giannis. Jokic is going to be there. Maybe you get LeBron one more run. KD, if he's healthy, it's going to be tough. But, I mean, you talk about big men. You're talking about offensive force in the NBA. He's up there, man. There's no questions about it.
Yeah, man. We have Erkan from the UK saying, "Good morning, love your show. Thank you. We'll be doing a lot of these during the regular season. Just getting warmed up, absolutely. And then we got to talk about the other big piece going on right now. Let's hear about Doc Rivers after the game talking about Ben Simmons returning to Philadelphia." Hold on. I got to hit play. Hold on.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it. I think he did his COVID test today from reports from Woj. I'm going to call Woj to find out what's going on.
Here's what Woj had to say.
You don't have to call Woj because we did. So Woj, the Sixers coach would like to know what's going on, and so would I. What's going on?
Scott, the morning started with the 76ers talking to Rich Paul, Ben Simmons' agent, about him coming in. Philadelphia thought he would probably come later in the week. And all of a sudden, near the opening tip tonight of that Brooklyn-Philly preseason game, I'm told that Elton Brand, who's the Sixers general manager, works with Daryl Morey, Doc Rivers, gets a text message essentially saying, hey, Ben's outside the building. He needs to get in to come take his COVID test. And that's how the Sixers found out that Ben Simmons, after 2 weeks away in the preseason, had returned to Philadelphia. He took his COVID test tonight, and he is back. He is back with the organization right now.
All right,
fans, I love you.
Let me get rid of that. So that is Ben Simmons. He is in Philly. Good news. Bad news, no one freaking knows it other than Woj. Mac5 says, good morning, Sixers fans. Our show is next level toxic. I can't get enough of it. Thank you so much for joining. I had the privilege to invite my man Harrison Grimm from Liberty Ballers to talk about Ben Simmons returning to Philly. Here is our interview. Guys, now I bring you guys one of the best Sixers Twitter follows, period. Even better writer for LibertyBallers.com, ProFitX, and all of his work at SBNation.com. He is Harrison Grimm. Follow him on Twitter at Harrison_Grimm. What's up, Harrison?
Hey, man, I really appreciate you having me on. I'm really excited to talk about the Sixers and more topics more than other. Some topics are a little bit repetitive, but I'm really happy to be on, really happy to be talking Sixers with you.
Thank you, man. Thank you so much for joining. I'm going to talk about a little topic that a lot of people aren't talking about, and that is Ben Simmons, because it was reported today that Ben Simmons will be returning to the team. We got to lead off there. Do you expect Ben Simmons to play a single game for the Sixers in 2021-22?
That is quite the question, and you know, that's the question that we've been hearing, you know, for the past however many months. In my personal opinion, I don't think so. I think he will return to Philadelphia and be with the Sixers in some capacity. But ultimately, I don't think he'll suit up. I just don't see him suiting up for a Philly crowd where, let's face it, people really have turned on him. And that's part of the reason of how him and Clutch Sports and everything, how they handled this. So I think he'll be with the team. I do think that will come, just because I think it's really stacking up how much money, you know, he's losing. He's lost about $1 million already. And we're only like a week or two into the preseason. But I think he'll have some kind of injury that isn't really an injury, but he'll call it an injury to not play.
And the funniest thing is, like, as we stand now getting ready for the preseason game here on Monday night, the Sixers trot a starting lineup with Isaiah Joe, Furkan Korkmaz, and Danny Green. Not a point guard to be found in this starting lineup. It is just absolutely hilarious. Let's move on. What is your personal favorite Ben Simmons trade idea? And, like, what is your best guess for when this trade will go down?
So that's tough. You know, my answer, and it probably lines up with what your answer is, you know, the most ideal thing is Damian Lillard or Bradley Beal. Okay. Now, that isn't available, at least not right now. So you got to look at other options. And I think when it comes to, if I'm Daryl Morey, what would I value? You got to kind of balance between win-now players, and I also think draft equity is extremely valuable if one of those before-mentioned stars or maybe someone else becomes available later on down the line. You know, you want some draft ammo. And while the Sixers do have most of their first-round picks, they don't have all of them, and they're a little bit restricted in what they can and can't offer. So in terms of a package outside of those two guys, Brad Beal and Damian Lillard, I think the Pacers have a really intriguing offer, especially if they're valuing those win-now players. Brogdon, I've talked about this on Twitter. I absolutely love his fit in Philadelphia. and more specifically with Tyrese Maxey, Brogdon would really ease the load of Tyrese Maxey being thrusted into this role that's been left wide open by Ben Simmons. He's a perfect fit, great defender, a great shooter. There are some injury concerns, and there's also injury concerns with the other player that's been rumored to the Sixers, with Karis LeVert, who's actually currently hurt with a stress fracture. But he's a gifted perimeter scorer, can score at all 3 levels. He's someone that could help the team. But it comes down to it. When it comes down to it, I should say, the Sixers really have to decide, does that offer, or maybe a different offer from the Timberwolves or someone else, does it really move the needle? And that's a question that they have to answer, because obviously they can't do a Ben Simmons trade and get even more stuck than where they are now. So that's something that they really need to consider.
If you were to ask me like 3 or 4 months ago where I think Ben should go, the Indiana Pacers offer Brogdon and Karis LeVert and draft picks, I was like probably like no, so like maybe like a 4 or 5 out of 10. But now that you see that Tyrese Maxey's ready to go, make a huge leap in his second year, the fact that, me personally, I like the idea of bringing in Brogdon to start and then having that microwave scorer like Tyrese Maxey off the bench, just to kind of slowly groom him into that role. Because I'm a little nervous, especially with the way Philly is and our fans, that we're throwing him into this point guard role that he's just not quite ready for. What I do know he's ready for is to be a lights out scorer, huge penetrator, and amazing finisher at the rim. I want to see I'm not ready to just throw him into the Wolves yet. That's my only take. And what that means is I'm a little bit higher on that trade now. I definitely can see that developing a little easier. However, if you were to ask me 3 months ago, I'd be like, wait, sit on it, wait. And let's see one of these disgruntled stars request a trade in a month or so, come November, December. Let's move forward. Speaking of Tyrese Maxey, what is your realistic projection for Tyrese Maxey, and how good could this guy be this season?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think when it comes to Tyrese, I think he'll have a better year than he had last year, which is a hot take. No, not really. But I think he'll have a solid season, but I don't think it'll be to the caliber that people think. I think, easing your way into the NBA is a challenging thing alone, let alone when you're a point guard. And especially with Tyrese Maxey, he's kind of a tweener between a 1 and a 2. He really plays more like a 2, but he has the body of a 1. So while he can play make, it's definitely not a strong suit, or at least we haven't really seen it be a strong area for him as of yet. But that being said, I think bare minimum, you can expect this guy to be a 10-point per game scorer, which isn't a bad thing at all, especially for a 22-year-old guard on high efficiency. And really the key to Tyrese Maxey getting minutes and establishing a starting role, assuming Ben Simmons isn't actually playing, is going to be how well he can play make for others, how well he can run the offense and be the prime initiator. So if he can creep up into that 4 to 5 assists per game category, I really think he could start getting more serious minutes. But until then, that remains to be seen.
Yeah, plus I'd like to see him get to the free throw line a little bit more, which I'm sure we'll see. I think he finished through contact really well in the last preseason game, got the end one. There are a lot of areas that Maxey still needs to develop, and I'm just a little cautious. I'm excited, but I'm still a little cautious on this dude's development. All right, last question. Who takes more three-pointers who takes more three-pointers per game this year? Is it Tobias Harris or is it Isaiah Joe? And the reason why I ask this is because I think Isaiah Joe is ready to be an impact guy this season. And you saw 10 3-pointers per game there in the summer league. This guy is fearless. He's not afraid to shoot. Vice versa, we've had some arguments with Tobias Harris and not shooting enough from the perimeter. What's your take? Who shoots more?
Well, it's tough. I'm with you. I think Isaiah Joe is the real deal. I was actually at the blue and white scrimmage. I got to see him in person, and that man just makes effortless shots. He pulls up from anywhere and makes it. And not only that, we know and we knew Isaiah Joe can shoot coming out of the drafts, but the real area for growth with him was on the defensive end. And if you watch some of those summer league games, he really competes defensively. And while he's one of the more skinnier players out there, it hasn't really shown to be a real serious concern. And his defensive activity has been really impressive. But going back to the question at hand, while my heart wants to say Isaiah Joe, I'm with you on the Isaiah Joe train. I got to go with Tobias Harris. And the only reasoning behind that is the fact that Tobias Harris is going to play a lot more than Isaiah Joe, at least this season. Tobias Harris is going to be a 34-ish minute per game guy. Isaiah Joe right now is looking on the outside of the rotation. I think he should be in it. I'm not saying he shouldn't be. But I just am not sure if the minutes are there quite yet. And, the Ben Simmons deal, we'll see how that shakes out. Now, if you're talking about per 36 minutes between Tobias Harris and Isaiah Joe, if they're playing on an equal playing field in terms of playing time, I'll definitely go towards Isaiah Joe. Because like you said, he's fearless. And he has that shooter's mentality. He'll just forget the misses and keep jacking up shots. But I will go with Tobias Harris.
Love it. That is definitely an area that I need to see progress from Doc Rivers. I need to see the Sixers take more threes this season. That was a major area of weakness, especially in the playoffs, the reluctance to shoot threes. Let's see that progress. But guys, follow my man Harrison on Twitter at Harrison_Grim. Like every single time I see breaking news, my man is covering it. Harrison, what do you got going on, man? Where can we find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Harrison_Grim. That's with 2 M's, just like the fairy tales. You can find my work over on Liberty Ballers. I do writing for them. I also do some film breakdowns, some film highlights, and also you can check out my work at ProfitX, where I do kind of more general NBA stuff and kind of cover the league as a whole. So you can check me out there.
Awesome. Thank you so much for Harrison. Catch you next time. I am muted. My bad. Technical issues here on the debut show here. That is Harrison Grim. Please be sure to give him a follow. Thank you, Harrison, for that. Let's talk about Ben Simmons returning to Philly briefly. What is your take? Lead us off, Tiago. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, I think first of all, the whole story behind, him knocking on the door, texting Ellen Brand is just typical Sixers. You got to love it. But I think the biggest takeaway from last night is the fact that by Ben returning, it kind of puts the Sixers back in the driver's seat a little bit. And I think that's important. I think that, we all kind of read the packages that are out there right now. And there's, people can pick at different ways of why do you think this works or this doesn't. But there's also a world where as the season progresses, one of these stars may become available. And, no matter what you think of Ben, there's still a star power element to his game that I think puts the Sixers in a conversation around some of these bigger names that may or may not become available. So I think for me, the big takeaway is the fact that by him being in the building, now potentially the Sixers can start to have those conversations moving forward that, quite frankly, by him just refusing not to show up would be very hard to do.
And now we got my man Jason joining, our Sixers beat reporter. Jason, what's your take on the whole Ben Simmons mess?
It's a mess. I think about like the security guard out front when he shows up. Has his badge been deactivated? I don't know. You just can't just walk in. Like it's a mess because, quite frankly, he's a very specific player, and they are trying to implement an offense right now, assuming he won't be here. So do you just throw him back in? Do you throw him in with the second unit, say play defense, be disruptive, run in transition? If you want to bring him back into a practice, does he come to practice day 2 and he's sore and suddenly now he's not there? He hasn't been there for weeks. It seems like he's reporting for duty to stop from getting fined, but is he really reporting to be a part of the team? There's a tricky balance because if he gets hurt, then that makes it harder to trade him as well. So my guess is they're going to bring him along slowly, get him into game condition. He'll work on conditioning on the side. He'll be in the weight room, at 11 p.m. when nobody else is there. So he gets paid while they work on something. It's hard for me to see him practicing or playing with the team.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. You see Doc Rivers' reaction to the question. He had no clue. Absolutely no clue about the status of Ben Simmons. He was literally looked like during the post-game press conference that he was hearing about it for the first time and how to react to it. So, Tiago, does Ben Simmons play a single game this year with the Philadelphia 76ers?
I find it very hard to believe he will. I don't think he'll ever suit up in a Sixers uniform again. I could be completely wrong, but I truly believe he's, like Jason said, he's kind of here not to get fined. But even then, I think he puts the Sixers in a better position than they were 2 days ago. It was interesting that Jason brought up the fit aspect of it, because Joel was asked after the game about Ben, and Joel was very specific around the idea of implementing an offense and Ben Simmons having to buy into that. And I think what Joe was talking about specifically is, hey, man, if you're on the perimeter, you better shoot the ball. I mean, that's basically what we're talking about. So you can already see how the dynamic has kind of shifted in the locker room in terms of like, well, this is my team moving forward, and we're going to do things my way. But the question I have for Jason is, do you think you'll ever get access to Ben interviews moving forward?
No, and I would guess that if he does, he'll have very scripted answers and just not give any real insights. It'd be you said I'm just here so I don't get fined, right? Those types of scripted answers. It'll be probably be more well crafted than that, but no.
All right. Let's circle back to the beginning of the program. We're reacting to the Nets game, and I think the star of this preseason so far has been Isaiah Joe. And I'd love to get your take on Isaiah Joe's impact with the Philadelphia 76ers this season, Jay. What is your take? Leading the team in points, 64% from three, 12 of 19, 7 steals, 2 blocks, leading in minutes total played. How soon, how real is this with this whole Isaiah Joe thing moving forward?
I think anytime you punish a team for going under a screen and they don't have that many players that can really do it, is just super valuable. His release is both ultra in rhythm and quick. So he's just going to be a very useful player for this team. I'm just looking at his draft, NBA draft.net profile, just for a sanity check. And he's compared there. His player comparison is Marco Bellinelli, which I think is actually pretty good.
It is.
And I think everyone sees his frame as very slight, but his wingspan is nearly 6'8" wingspan. For context, a similar size player, JJ Redick, had, I believe, a 6'2" wingspan. So he's got some defensive upside. You just saw that clip right there where he ran a pick and roll with a lob. Yeah. But the main thing for me is this one right here, right? Just a simple DHO with a little screen. He comes around, hits in rhythm. You can't go under a screen on him. That kind of stuff is just ultra valuable in many different ways for many different players. So I find him to be a very valuable player on the team. I wonder, is he in the top 8 rotation? I think he's going to get a chance to be, for sure.
All right.
You just look at the rhythm and and quickness that release comes out. And that's a powerful combination.
Last question, guys, before we wrap up our premiere here. Isaiah Joe, how many minutes do you expect from Isaiah Joe this year? Here was a poll I ran last night. Majority says 10 to 14 minutes per game for Isaiah Joe during the regular season. Second is 15 to 19 minutes. Lead us off, Tiago. How good is Isaiah Joe, and how many minutes do you expect him to play this year?
So I think the conversation around Joe's minutes usually settles on, is it Core, is it Joe who gets the bulk of the minutes coming off the bench? And I think it's a valid point. I think he should be talked about as a stable in the rotation. And the reason why I say that is because one of the things that I personally want to see the Sixers do more of this year is go to multiple guard lineups. And you saw that yesterday just out of necessity, right? So you had Korkmaz and Joe out on the court at the same time. I think that's something Doc can really explore with those two, especially Joel as a rim protector. You saw when Drummond was out on the floor and when Paul Reed's at center, it's a little trickier. Those guys just don't have the same type of rim protection feel and impact that Joel has and Dwight Howard had last year. So he may get a little trickier from that standpoint, but I do think that Joe and Korkmaz together, with Joel, with another point guard perhaps, works. And I think if that does work, then you're talking about, 15 plus minutes. But I think that eventually it's going to settle into 8 to 10.
Okay.
With the potential to grow into that 10 to 14 range.
What do you think, Jay? Did the fans get it right 10 to 15 minutes?
I think so. But I'm sure you guys played that downhill dunk from Embiid with the fake shot at the top of the arc and then drive down. Watch Isaiah Joe on that play off ball and watch how he truly does space the floor and give Joel outlets. He's a player that you can plug into really any combination, and he knows how to move off the ball without the ball and provide outlets for his teammates. You're always going to want those guys on the floor. So 15, 19 minutes feels right to me. The bigger question is, does he get hunted in the playoffs on the other end in a series where they're hunting matchups? But I don't see any reason why he can't play 15 to 20 minutes a game in the regular season.
Did you guys see Joe Harris get abused on defense last night? Like, dude got torn to pieces. It just threw me back to playoff JJ Redick and just your weakest players, your weakest defender on a team like that. So I just had those flashbacks. I don't have the NBA doesn't give us the matchups yet statistic wise, but I imagine that his numbers are just absolutely ridiculously bad defensively. So that is our debut episode of Morning Cup of Joe. Guys, if you're watching us live, thank you for joining. We'll be doing these right after games throughout the regular season. I want to get a couple of more of these before the regular season starts. I'm going on vacation in a couple of days, so there's going to be some time off for sure. But guys, please be sure to smash that subscribe button. Follow my man on Twitter at @tscabia. Jay Blevins NBA down there. For Tiago, for Jason, for myself. Thank you for watching. Stay awesome, everyone.
Maxey! Wow, what a play! He's got Bogdanovich thinking about a three. There it is! Yes! From beyond. Oh, and there's Bud coming up with a steal. Curry open. It's for three. Yes!
And now,